Hi, my name's Stephen Aitken from Aitken Real Estate. Thanks for joining us today on Facebook Live. We apologise for running a few minutes late, but we had some technical difficulties, which is want to happen with these sort of things. But let's get stuck into it. What we're going to talk about today is the buying process. And now you're excited about going into the market and buying your home, whether it's a first home or your second or third home. It's always a great time to be in the market. Unfortunately, today's market is such that what happens is people are struck by the rate of climb of prices, and also being beaten at auctions with lots of excuses given, whether it's Asian buyers or the Chinese market and all sorts of things. But there are some things that can help the process that will make your life a bit easier when you buy, and also from a buying process point of view, so as you know what to look for or what to prepare for during the course of your looking. So the first thing is finance. So before you start looking, before you start inspecting properties, the most important thing I believe is to organise your finance. So I hope that you've got a deposit, but if you've got a deposit, which is great, then you need to go and speak to your bank. So a bank or some form of lending institution, could be a building society, or these days mortgage brokers are very popular. There's some excellent mortgage brokers around that go across all lending institutions. I know that some are tied up with certain ones. Aussie Home Loans, I know, are owned by the Commonwealth Bank these days, but they claim to be independent. It's worth doing your investigation. It's also worth speaking to to people that may have bought through or used a particular mortgage broker, which is helpful. Be just mindful of when companies recommend mortgage brokers, such as real estate agents recommending mortgage broking companies or certain lending institutions. The reason is that they can be getting a trailing commission, or which is illegal, or some form of kickback, and you don't want to be part of that. You want somebody independent. So it's really important to do some investigation, ask some friends and family, and do your checks. So once you've got your lending institution, they're going to ask you for a whole lot of documentation. They're going to ask you for wages. They're going to ask you for any other properties that you might own. If you're going to buy an investment property, they're going to ask for all sorts of information. If you have a partner, they're going to ask, possibly if you're buying together, all their information. So you've got a bit of paperwork that you're going to have to get done. Now, the idea of speaking to your lending institutions first is to try and get either what they call pre-approval. So the bank or lending institution will say to you that you have up to a certain amount that you can either bid at auction or you can negotiate up to pay for a given property. This isn't set in concrete, by the way. Lending institutions that say you've got pre-approval up to a certain amount, that's no guarantee. What they're saying is that based on the information you're giving them today, then it's likely that they will lend you up to this certain amount. But it does vary on certain things. So it depends on if your circumstances change when you come to buy the property. It also depends often on valuation. So recently we had a property which a buyer bought and paid a certain figure for. Unfortunately, the bank valued it lower than the buyer had paid, subsequently could only get a certain amount of loan monies. In the end, he had to withdraw from the sale, and that property came back onto the market, was subsequently sold to somebody else. So it's important to get your finance in order so as you absolutely know what you're doing in money. That also goes to helping things like speaking to real estate agents, in that you can say that you're ready to go, they know you're serious, and they're likely to want to work with you more than people that have just entered the market that have just started looking. Another area of finance that you might want to consider is that coming to, and we're only talking about money at this stage, that if you have a deposit of less than 20%, so you've got maybe 10% of the purchase price, you're going to probably have to pay mortgage insurance. So you've got to add on these sort of expenses when you're figuring out your money. Now, this will come out with your lender, but just so as you're doing it on a piece of paper at home and you're trying to work out how much money you think that you can afford, what you need to do is take into account things like mortgage insurance will cost you some thousands of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. The other thing, so you're going to have to pay your deposit, which is generally 10% of the purchase price. When you go to get your loan, you're going to have to pay perhaps mortgage insurance if you have a deposit less than 20%. You're also going to have to figure in things like stamp duty. Now, stamp duty in Victoria on, say, $800,000, I've just got a quick note here, is about $43,000. So in Victoria, it's, I think at $800,000, it's $43,070. Australia or Victoria has one of the highest stamp duties going around, so it's important that you check what the stamp duty is going to be. And there's a little app you can get called Oz Stamp Duty, which you can get on your phone. That'll give you stamp duties in all the states of Australia, and that's a great little app to have. Gives you working knowledge on if you happen to be buying in New South Wales or Queensland. So stamp duty is a very, very important number that you have to figure into. The other thing is legals. So legals is another cost. So legals is when you do the conveyancing, so when they transfer the paperwork from the seller's name to your name or names, you're going to either use a solicitor or a conveyancer. Now, we've done a Facebook live broadcast on conveyancing, so it's perhaps worth having a look at that. But you can sort of generally figure $1,000 odd is going to cost in legals. Then of course you've got moving expenses and any repairs that you might have to do to the property that you buy. So before you start looking, it is definitely worthwhile sitting down with a pen and paper and going through all those items one by one and not just shrugging them off to the side, because when you find the property that you love and you want to buy, they're going to come to the fore, and all of a sudden you might find that you haven't got the funds to buy it because you haven't accounted for stamp duty and all those other bits and pieces, and it makes up a substantial amount of money. So moving on from finance, the next step is, of course, what property are we going to buy and where are we going to buy it? So this again is quite hard. As a real estate agent, we sometimes get people looking for properties in quite wide-ranging areas, and this is very difficult for us. Most agents work over not narrow areas, but defined sort of areas of influence. So if you're going to, even though you're looking on the internet, that's not the same as looking at a property. And also, if you want to work with an agent, if you want to talk with a real estate salesperson about finding you a given property or telling you when something's coming up, real estate salespeople get pretty busy. They've got a lot of things to do. And what they want to do is work with real buyers, so people that have got their finance in place ready to go, and that if they find the right property and they've got all their ducks in a row, as it were, they're ready to go. Plus the sellers only want to speak to buyers that are well qualified, as we say, so they've got everything going for them. One of the systems that I've said to people over the years is when they've tried to figure out what they want and where they're going to be is just a simple chart. So the chart that I've just done today is, it's just a line down the centre of the page with wants and needs. So what you do is, if you're a single person, then you can, this is pretty simple. I think if you're a couple, the best thing is one person takes a sheet and the sheet each, and what you do is you go into separate rooms. It's much funnier over a glass of wine. But if you take the sheet into separate rooms and don't discuss it, fill out the wants and needs of what you think that you want to buy, then you combine them and then do a third sheet with your definite wants and definite needs. So the thing that you should look for in a house initially is the needs. So whether it's a double lock-up garage, or it's a villa unit with a single lock-up garage, or it's a front unit, or it's a house that you want to do up, so you want to do renovations or things like that, or even areas is very important. But initially, the type of house that you hope to buy, maybe an apartment, maybe does it have to be on the first floor, ground floor? If it's a house, does it need not have steps, or things like that? So it's very important that you list and be quite as specific as you can. It also helps in your looking and searching, because after a while, most people spend more time, I believe, searching for a plasma TV than they often do in searching for a home. But if you can eliminate some of the heartache in searching for a home by knowing specifically what type of property you're looking for, that will help you cause a lot. So the wants and needs is great. So now we're saying, okay, which area we're going to look in. Well, this is often determined by price. So what you've got to do in these sort of things is do research. Now, again, I mentioned the plasma TV. That is true, that we often see people that will spend more time researching a TV or a car than they will determining what sort of house and where they want to live. With area, and even with house prices today, people go, how can I determine price? How can I determine the price of the area? The first thing you can do is Google, and the internet gives great solace to people today. You can get an enormous amount of information. RP Data Core Logic is a company that in Australia wide that has house prices. What you can get from them is area averages. So, for instance, Cheltenham, it runs between about 870 and 890,000. So, if you've only got 700,000 to spend, it's unlikely you're going to buy a house on a normal block in Cheltenham for that sort of money. So, if you again, rather than look in an area and go to a lot of effort, go to a lot of open homes, or go and look at private inspections where you genuinely can't buy it, that seems a pointless exercise. If you're in the market to buy, certainly try and be a bit more specific with the area. So it's pretty easy to get averages, median prices of suburbs, and it also, with Core Logic, and there's a company called Price Finder, they will also give you median prices of houses for villa units and for apartments. So again, makes your life very easy, or easier, I should say. The other area is genuine research. Now, there's been a lot made out on TV and media about people getting blown away at auctions, that they miss out by thousands, that the properties go for, $100,000 over the reserve, and that lots of people attend for no reason at all. I'd suggest that is, unfortunately, while the agents do bait and switch at auctions, which means that there's been lots made in the media of underpricing by agents and quoting low. The truth is, as a buyer, you should be as well informed as the agent. So that means going and looking at properties and watching what properties go for, and understanding that agents work for the sellers, and they're trying to, or should be trying to get the best price that they can for agents. Now, in our opinion, we believe that auctions only get the second best price, but you'd have to give us a call for us to explain how that simply works. But ultimately, if you're going to buy privately, or you're going to buy at auction, what you really want to do is do thorough research. Now, there are, again, even with Google, if you type in a lot of addresses, it will tell you what somebody paid for it, even if it's 5 years ago. If they've done renovations, you can sort of get a feel for how much that might have cost. And I think that a reasonable person can say that while it might owe a seller a certain price in this market, and if you want to buy, then you're going to have to pay whatever market price is, or whatever the agent can get you to pay. So it's very important that you start looking at comparable properties. So a property, say, in our area that is beach side of Nepean Highway is not the same as a property on the other side of Nepean Highway. And it applies to all areas. All areas have their own idiosyncrasies, and it's important if you're going to look for a home in one or two suburbs that you start concentrating your efforts there rather than going over enormous distances, because again you get no feel for the area. If you localise your search and you're in an area where you can probably afford the property, it means that you can more target what you're looking for. Also, you get a better feel for the area, so you know the what we call the rat run streets, where people use them as shortcuts. You can go and speak to the local shopkeepers and get a feel for what they like, or where they think great areas in the suburb are. It's great to go and have a cup of coffee and just talk to people that you're thinking of buying in the area. Where do what sort of places do they like living in, where the shops are, where the best shops are. So all these sort of things matter, and you can do it. You can do this research online, and you can also do the research physically, which is I encourage everybody to do. At Aitken Real Estate, we will only show real buyers, so people that have got their finance in place, that are ready to buy today through property. So we believe that we're not a tourist destination, we're not a museum, but lots of companies do open for inspections where you can go through, have a good look at a property, watch the auction. If it gets sold privately for any reason and you have been through that property, you can always ring the agent and have a chat to them, see what it's sold for. If they don't tell you, if they're not allowed to, or they refrain from telling you what it exactly sold for, most agents will give you an idea of its around about where it went for, and that gives you a better feel for the next property that you look at. But try to be objective. Look at apples and apples rather than apples and pineapples. So rather than look at if you're looking for a 2-bedroom villa unit and you start looking at 3-bedroom villa units, it's very hard to compare. So try to stick to your wants and needs again, and go and inspect a lot of properties. Looking on the internet is not the same as physically inspecting them either. Photos do lie. They are made out to look bigger than they are. They're taken at better angles. It never shows you the streetscape. So there's a lot to be said by even just driving around an area. Perhaps you might trip over a property by just seeing their board in an area that you might like. Go and talk to neighbours if you're worried about streets, or even in villa units, complexes where there's 2 or 3 or 4 villa units. There's nothing wrong these days in going knocking on a door and saying you're looking to buy in this complex. How do you find it? Is it quiet? Do they like pets? Do they not like pets? All this sort of thing you can find out as a buyer, but it really requires effort. If you narrow your search down, it makes life very easy. If your search is a huge net where you're just hoping to land a property, it makes life difficult, and it's very frustrating. So that's there's core logic. Oh, there's another company. If you're looking to get an investment property, or you're looking for, say, a hotspot area that you don't really care where you live, Terry Ryder is a well-known researcher, and he has a company called, and a website called hotspotting.com.au, and that's definitely worth a look, and even subscribing to his material. Terry's well regarded. Nothing in it for us. We just find it's great research. As I said, Price Finder, Core Logic is also excellent as well. Open for inspections, checking the auction results. A thing that we even ask our salespeople to do from time to time is go to an open for inspection, see what the agent has to say, that they think that the property will go for in price. Come back, write it in a book or on your phone, and assess what you think it'll go for. And after half a dozen auctions, you'll be able to see whether you're about right or whether you're well out in price. And you can also see where the agents are telling not quite the truth. So that gives you a much better feeling, and a well-informed buyer will as I said, make your life much better when you go to buy. Be careful of influence when you go to buy. We often see, perhaps not often, but we see from time to time mums and dads that are looking on behalf of their children. We know as agents, and most agents know, that they rarely come together. Having said that, we've just sold one recently to a couple on behalf of their adult children. However, as a general rule, what mum and dad thinks that their kids should buy is rarely what the kids thinks they should buy. So again, if you're looking, go out and make the effort, do the hard yards and go and look. If you haven't got time, you're time poor and all the rest of it, what you can do is hire a company, a buyer's agent. They charge a fee, usually a percentage of what you pay for the property. There's multiple buyers agencies these days. Some real estate agents act for buyers. We do occasionally, but it's not our general part of our business. But there's specific companies. A lady that used to work for Aitken Real Estate, Julie DeBont, runs a company called First Buyers Home Base. They cater a lot for first home buyers. Julie's worth a call to, but as I said, they charge a fee to do this, but they offer sound advice. They're probably stronger negotiators in part. Definitely worth a talk to if you're very time poor or you're interstate or you've got other issues that you can't manage. So that's searching for a property. Let's hope that you found the ideal property. You'll get lots of advice about talking to agents about saying that you're not keen and that that's going to help your cause, or going to an auction and only staying for 30 seconds and thinking that the agents don't know that you're interested. Most salespeople that have been in the business for a while are pretty experienced at all this. Most agents can tell that a buyer is keen. It doesn't take them very long. There are lots of telltale signs that buyers try to hide, both at going to auctions, which we used to do, and even private sale. What I'd suggest to most buyers is being quite candid with an agent, saying that yes, the property is of interest, that you would like to try and buy the property, and that you would want to sit down and talk about it. So ideally at the property that you inspect, or going back to the agent's office and having a chat. And many agents these days are quite happy to come out to your home or business and discuss and negotiate there. So that's it's very important to be sincere about these things. It stops a lot of mucking around. I think buyers get a lot of advice from so-called experts that doesn't really help at all. Most salesmen or half-decent ones know exactly what is going on, and they can play the game probably a lot harder than the average buyer. So that's important. Once you've negotiated the price, what I would suggest is when you get to the price that you're going to pay, whether it's your first offer or your last offer, I would be asking the agent that it needs to be put in writing. So in Victoria, that means putting it on a contract or contract note. In other states, it would be a similar system. And what you're really doing is formalising your proposal. And this means doing things like putting the price that you're prepared to pay, the deposit that's required in Victoria. In most other states, it's usually 10% of the purchase price. These days, cheques aren't used very often. That certainly it's by EFT is most common. We occasionally get bank cheques. Up to you, but most real estate offices want some form of deposit, which legitimises the transaction and shows your sincerity about what you're about to do. Putting it in writing is a critical part of this. It proves to the agent, and it also demonstrates to the seller that you are serious about what you want to do and that you do want to buy the property. People that throw in email offers and things like that, while that might be an initial start of the process, reality says that email offers are literally not worth the paper they're written on. In Victoria, a real estate transaction can only be done by a contract in writing. So the thing is, an email does not commit you to anything, nor will a seller sign off on an email. But a contract note is or a contract is completely different. So you want to submit it in writing. If the agent won't take it in writing, what you've got to ask yourself is, does the agent think that the offer's too low? Because that's usually the case. If an agent won't take your offer in writing, if they say, as in on a contract, but they say, look, shoot me an email, we have done it at our office. In fact, what we've said to people, if they're well low, and we will be recommending to our client that while it's an interesting proposal, it is, in our opinion and in the seller's opinion, it's too low, then we will often say to a buyer, look, shoot us to us as an email, we'll speak to our client. Rarely do those things hold any water until such time as the price comes up and we start to get serious and we put it in a contract. So just understand the process with this. The other thing is to often buyers ask questions such as, what does it take to take the property off the market? Well, if it's a private sale, it's usually the asking price or higher. So that's usually the case. With an auction, a lot of people will say, I'm going to make an offer prior. Unfortunately these days, and because we don't do public auctions, because we don't think it's in the best interests of our sellers, the fact is, rarely do offers prior to auction make the grade. There's occasional ones that do, and they're usually extremely high offers, well past what the agents believe are going to make it at auction. But the reason that offers prior to auction don't make the grade is that the agents want to run the auction campaign out and use up all the advertising, and that's just a fact of life. Happens all the time, all over Australia and particularly in Victoria. So just understand as a buyer though, that while you're declaring your hand to a large degree if you make an offer prior to auction, so as if let's just say you were going to bid at auction and you were going to make an offer of say $950 prior to auction, and the auction they knock your offer back, you get to auction and the auction stops at say $920, they're going to pass if you're attending, they're going to pass the property in and they're going to work on you until that figure of $950 is achieved or better. So my advice to buyers is, if you love a property and it is going to auction, what I'd be saying to the agent is, I have got an interest in this property, I will be attending the auction, I am interested in bidding, but what I would like to do is, if there's any movement and that the property is likely to be sold prior to auction, please give me a call, here's my mobile number. I would be wanting to submit a proposal prior to auction, but only on the basis that that's going to happen. And one would like to think that the salesperson would honour their word and give you a call. Doesn't always happen, but you would think that that's a part of what they should do. The other thing about bidding at auction too, just if you go to the Aitken Real Estate blog, and one of our early blog posts, there was a 3-part series on how to bid at auction, tactics at bidding at auction, which would be quite worthwhile for the average person that hasn't bid before. I'm a senior auctioneer, or was a senior auctioneer, have conducted many auctions. It's a reflection of how we used to conduct them and the tactics that we occasionally use now when we are bidding on behalf of people. And these days at Aitken Real Estate, we sometimes will bid at auction on behalf of clients, and we also occasionally do paid bidding on behalf of people that get too nervous or feel that they would be under duress at an auction. Just another little thing, just an aside at an auction, and you'll see it in the blog post, is have a definitive figure. Don't go to an auction with, I may spend this much or I might spend this much. Have a definitive figure. If you go to our blog post, it sets it out really clearly about the methodology and the tactics that you should use. So we've got to the negotiation or buying at auction. If you go into an auction, you should understand a few things. That when you buy, you're buying unconditionally. So 3 days before, so that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and on the auction day, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, barring any public holidays, wherever you get to, it's unconditional, which means there are no conditions on the contract. It means that you can't have it subject to finance, subject to a pest inspection, subject to Aunt Flo having a look at the property, or subject to my legal people inspecting the Section 32. You need to buy unconditionally. Unfortunately, with auctions, you either have to hopefully pick it right and get your checks done and invest the time and money on the basis that you may be the bidder, or you've just got to, which is what we say to many sellers, is that what most buyers do, or many buyers do, they hold money back just in case. Whichever way you play it out, you must understand it's an unconditional offer 3 days before, on the day, and 3 days afterwards. So it's quite important to understand. With a private sale, what you're doing is you can have conditions, and it allows you a little bit more latitude when you're negotiating, and you're nervous. Maybe it's your first or second home. You want it checked. You're worried about pests, as in termites or other nasties that can be around. So you want a pest inspection and you want a building inspection. I encourage all buyers to get pest and building. I think most sellers these days understand that that's part of what happens. I think that if I was giving advice to any buyers, they're two things that I would have. We take most of our building inspections as no major structural defects. All buildings, even new ones, have issues where the walls aren't quite straight, or something, a tap doesn't work. They're not major issues, and many properties have these things. In an older house where that you might want to do up or renovate, then there's going to be a whole lot of issues. What you're worried about is whether the roof might fall in tomorrow, and if you're not a builder, you need to know that, or the footings that the building rests on are sound, that or you've got some idea of what the costs are going to be. So building and pest is probably a really good thing to get done. With a private sale, you can put in things like subject to my legal people looking over the vendor statement or Section 32, which certainly can put your mind at rest. But bearing in mind that's unnecessary these days, because if the Section 32 is defective, as it's called, then you can withdraw from the sale anyway. So a defective, what the seller has to do is provide an accurate vendor statement. So that's important. The other thing to understand when you put in a proposal, if you're going to put in a proposal and cool off. So there's a 3-day cooling off period. Now, the reason that agents ask for deposits is that if you just use the cooling off period and you don't withdraw under, say, finance or pest or anything like that, but you buy the property in a rush of blood, you go out and you decide the next day or in 2 days' time that you've made a huge error of judgment and that you want to withdraw from the contract, you have 3 clear business days to do that. However, I might tell you that you are up to lose 0.2% of the purchase price. So people think this is $50 or $100. On an $800,000 sale, that's $1,600. So be clear about what you're doing. We as agents will, when people start talking about cooling off period, we get very nervous. So we usually ask people to go away and have a good think about it before they commit themselves to a contract, because we don't want to submit a potential sale to our client where people are just shrugging their shoulders and going to withdraw because they've just changed their mind. So we, as agents, go to a lot of trouble to work through that, and most, I think, do these days. certainly you can't, there's no cooling off period at an auction. So what you do is once you sign the contract, you're done and dusted and must proceed. The other, just going back to auctions for a second, it has been said in the past that if I bid at auction and then I put my hand down and they knock it down to me, what happens? While the agents may chase you down the street and they might try to deal with you for disrupting an auction, and there are some laws regarding that, the truth of the matter is you are not committed to buying a property until you sign a contract of sale. So no matter what, no matter what agents say, the fact is real estate can't change hands until a contract of sale has been signed. So there's lots of bluff and intimidation that goes on in this business. That is just a fact of life. So we've submitted our offer in writing. The agents come back and said, and if it's an auction, they've knocked it down to you. Congratulations, everybody's given a smatter clap. If you're buying it privately in a private negotiation fashion, the agents come back and said, congratulations, the sellers have signed the contract, you have bought the property. Elation, break out the champagne or a cup of tea and celebrate. The next part is what happens next. Most agents today will submit your contract, the signed contract, to your nominated solicitor or legal representative, and they will do it for both sides. So they'll send it to the seller's side and the buyer's side, which makes your life easier. You should, as a matter of course, once it's been signed, you'll speak to your conveyancer or legal representative and just advise them, just in case the agent has missed it or something's gone wrong in their administration, just worth making a phone call to your legal representative to say, I've bought this, can we get things going? Also, you now need to really turn up the heat on your lender or broker, so you need to go and make contact with them and say, righto, this is what we've got. In your negotiation, you will have had your settlement period, so whether that be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you now know how long you've got to get all the act together. Just quickly going back to your conditions in a contract, the agents are going to say with subject to finance or building inspection or a pest inspection, they're going to give you a cut-off time. This is generally a week to 10 days at max. So once that becomes unconditional, so once those dates have finished, you really are committed to the property. You can't walk away once those conditions have been fulfilled, because what will happen is you will be sued for what they call specific performance of a contract. You will lose your deposit. You'll be sued for the balance when it's resold, and there are a lot of repercussions. So be very sure of what you're going to do before you do it. But once it's underway, once you've got notification, speak to your legal representatives, get some clear advice, and away you go. Your building inspection and your pest inspection's come back clear or with some minor issues. You are all on the way now. One of the things that will come up and may come up with a legal representative or a conveyancer is to say that you should insure the house. So once you've bought it and it becomes unconditional, that many representatives will say that because it is a grey area, you should take out some cover just in case a house burns down. This is always worthwhile. Get some advice by your legal people to see what they say. Then there's not a lot for you to do except probably shuffle an enormous amount of paperwork. Some of this is done online, but a lot of it still comes as hard copy these days. You go into your representative's office to sign forms and documents, transfer of title, and those sort of things. In Victoria, in the week leading up to settlement, you're entitled as a buyer to go back and inspect the property. You're allowed to have it in the same conditions, or you should expect it to be in the same condition as when you signed the contract. So if the grass is a foot high when you inspect it, and it's 8 foot high when you go and finally have your final inspection, you can ask for that to be adjusted, the grass cut, so as it represents what you saw when you first bought it. If things to check is that the Smeg dishwasher is still a Smeg dishwasher, it doesn't suddenly become a Kelvinator. And just in general terms, most sellers today, I think, do these things in very good faith. Their agents also act in good faith. They want to be able to deal with both seller and buyer again, and have that sort of relationship. So, but just as a matter of ticking the boxes, it's quite important. So you do your final inspection. What will generally happen is that on the day, you'll have paid your appropriate money over to your legal representative. On the day, what's going to happen is you don't have to attend anything. As I said, if you go and have a look at our conveyancing Facebook Live broadcast, it's probably worthwhile checking that. But ultimately, on the day you don't have to do anything. What's going to happen is the agents or your legal representative is going to ring you and say, money's changed hands, settlement has happened. In most companies at Aitken Real Estate, we'll either meet you at the property or you'll come in and get the keys. Usually one set, the rest are usually left in the property in the top kitchen drawer these days. But you'll go over, you'll hopefully celebrate and have a great life in your new property. So that's a quick overview of the buying process. Please give me a call at the office. Any of our sales team can help you with that. I just encourage you to do your due diligence. That's probably the most important thing for buyers. I think that buyers today often make out that it's the agent's fault, and certainly that is partly true. But if you do your due diligence, what you'll find is you'll have a much smoother journey to buying your home, where hopefully you'll stay for only a short period of time, and you'll give Aitken Real Estate a call so as we can sell it for you again and sell you another one. Please give me a call anytime at Aitken Real Estate on 9583 0996 if we can help you with anything. Thanks for listening today. Bye.